Shadow Games was a great experience and remains my favorite of our undergraduate movies.
We're about ready to get the first shot of this production.
At the time, one of my radio, TV, film professors asked me to create a documentary on how we produced Shadow Games, and I even got credit for it. Shadow Games was a totally positive experience. We made Pocket Hanger in the summer of 1984 simply because we could. We'd just come off of Shadow Games, which everyone liked. We had 2 cameras now, we had 2 mics, we had 2 lights, we had the editing system, we had the pool table. And we decided to remake a game of pool because we felt it was a good story and it deserved better treatment than what we were able to give it 2 years earlier. Chris and Brian produced Pocket Hanger, and I was very happy they did because it freed me up from a lot of responsibility and I was able to concentrate more on the story and the directing. Bob Reed would return and make his 3rd appearance in a Suburbia Studio project.
Little jerk.
My cat Jones would even make an appearance in the movie. And I was really happy my dad had a cameo in the film.
Take care of yourself, son.
Because shortly after we completed shooting Pocket Hanger, but before it was finished, my dad passed away. And we had the premiere scheduled not too long after that. And I remember even on our grief, my mom said, "You go ahead and have your premiere." And I did, and we dedicated it to my father. In fact, that premiere at TCU in 1984, we screened 3 movies that day. We screened The Forbidden Zone, Shadow Games, and then Pocket Hanger. And that's one of my brightest memories of that time right after my dad died, because Jim Wacker was the coach, the football coach at TCU. He'd just come in not too long before, and he restored that program, and they were winning, and Wacker was becoming a national figure. Anyway, his wife was friends with my mom, and he came to that premiere. I know he didn't want to be there. He's a very busy man, but his wife had dragged him to the premiere. After we screened The Forbidden Zone, he leaned over to his wife, Lil, and said, "You didn't tell me these were going to be real little movies." Then after Shadow Games, he clapped. He said, "Oh, that was good. Let's see another one." And then after Pocket Hanger, he stood and cheered, and I'll never forget that. He congratulated me afterwards, and it meant so much to me. Here's a man, a true critic, didn't want to be there, but after the shows, he enjoyed them, and I'll never forget that. Really cheered me up in a dark, dark time. I got the idea for Heartstrings from Dr. Tom Rocklin's Theory of Personality class. In fact, I put Dr. Rocklin in the movie. The idea is basically, can you condition a person to do something like Pavlov conditioned his dog? In fact, the script turned out so well that when I moved to Hollywood in 1988, I wrote a feature version that was actually optioned for 6 months. But back in 1985, with Heartstrings, we felt we were ready to bump up and do something broadcast quality, so it meant a whole new technical learning curve. Shadow Games had been okay as a black and white movie because black and white fit the tone of it, but Pocket Hanger was not black and white by choice, but because they're old Vidicon cameras, the color just wouldn't hold up. Unfortunately, the professor in charge of the video equipment at TCU at the time had something against me, and he would sabotage me. I would have the equipment checked out weeks in advance and show up to get it, and he wouldn't give it to me. And if it wasn't for Larry Charlesworth, a technician at TCU at the time, he kind of snuck equipment out to us through the back door. All he had was this old deck. It weighed a ton. It wasn't meant to go outside, and we'd run this extension cord 50 yards or whatever, but we made do until professional mobile video came to our rescue. Kerry Sims was no longer doing weddings. He was doing TV commercials now, and he loaned us one of his Ikegami 730 cameras. In fact, Kerry came with us and used his own Ikegami 79 to help us shoot a scene on location at the Ridgely Theater in Fort Worth when we were doing Heartstrings. And I got to keep his 730, and I used that for a couple of weeks, and we shot Heartstrings. But it became apparent very quickly we were going to need to get our own camera. So my brother, Dan Hall, kicked out $4,800, and we got our own Ikegami 730. It was this cool-looking orange camera. And surprise, surprise, it came with this Sennheiser microphone, $1,000 shotgun mic, sounded gorgeous. We used it to record Heartstrings and the rest of our movies. In fact, we've used it for everything. I'm using it to record this documentary. We had to buy a power supply for it. Come to think of it, that Sennheiser has a claim to fame. It was used to record the sound in an Academy Award-nominated movie called Bronx Cheers, of which I was an extra. I have a beard and a hat in the background in a couple of scenes, and then I'm behind a guy with a hat. That Mike's special, and I always knew someday I'd be able to say I knew that Sennheiser when.
Heartstrings, I finally got to sort of get from in front of the camera and do some things behind the camera. I got to actually set up a few shots. You know, working with yet another group of people, you know, helped us to learn that, you know, there's certain ways you have to interact with different types of personalities, and we shot on several different locations.
One of the locations we used was an actual soundstage. We'd never shot on a soundstage before. So Chris and I did some tests. He would get on stage and I would film him with a camera and use the switcher and make little circles and things. And then since I was going to be in the movie, Chris would get in the studio and I would get on stage and we would do tests. It was a lot of fun. The coolest thing about Heartstrings that I remember was a guy named Sean Cowden. He built this set. I mean, usually sets are made of cheesecloth or paper. This guy brought in 2x4s. He nailed up sheetrock. He taped and bedded the thing. I mean, it was like a house, you know, part of a room. It was the coolest set I've ever seen. David Whitley decorated it with all kinds of artwork and things that he'd drawn, and his gerbils and hamsters. And Alan Hale was there and helped us in the control room. But it was a brutal movie to make, and it would be Brian's last movie with the studios. He would go off to college shortly after that. And right in the middle of the production, Whitley's girlfriend asked him what he wanted for his birthday on July 1st, and he said a wedding. And I used the Ikegami and the Sennheiser to record it for him. But you know, recently I've had to revise my opinion of Heartstrings. I've been mastering our movies on DVD, archiving them. I was in the studio the other day, and the technician helping me, when Heartstrings came on, he sat down and started watching it, and another woman came in and started watching it. About 5 minutes into it, they started predicting what might happen, and watching it through their eyes, they really enjoyed themselves. Gave me a new appreciation for Heartstrings, and I think it's a lot better than I thought it was all these years.
You treated me like a rat and trained me to kiss you, and now because of you, the guy I love hates me. How could you do that to me, to our friendship?
I want to be your friend again, Heather. I just want to be friends. It was wrong of me to try to make more. Friendship is more.
It's too late, Richard.
It was our first attempt at broadcast quality, and you can tell.
We're just going to have to see how this film comes off. If it's well received, we'll do another one. And
What if it's not?
we're going to do another one anyway.